Rodafleming here, and I want to do a quick one on the COVID lockdown farce. Even as the UK government, wriggling like a worm on a hook, tries to get itself out of the corner it's painted itself into. And quite obviously, Boris Johnson has wakened up to the fact that he is going to be the Prime Minister of the UK who oversaw the total destruction of its economy. And he's looking for a way out. You know, it is absolutely no surprise that the human arse is the shape it is when it spends so much time sitting on the fence, as Mr. Johnson has. Now, we have over the past few days, and I've been a while catching up on this, we've seen Priti Patel going beast mode and start to threaten people with all sorts of simums and reactions. Well, Priti, I'll tell you something, babe. In the UK, government is by consent, right? That's simple. That's how we managed to leave the EU. We didn't consent anymore. And so, please be careful, because the people of the United Kingdom are perfectly capable of withdrawing their consent from you and your government. Try to bear that in mind. That doesn't mean they'll vote Labour. They might vote for someone different from you. Now, obviously, government is now squealing that, you know, oh, there might be a second wave and we must have, well, there must never ever be another lockdown. This one was a complete farce that destroyed the economy. What are you going to do? Twice? Destroy it twice? I mean, if people think, if businesses think that in 6 months the government's going to pull a trick like this again, do you really think they're going to put money into getting their business to start again? You know, you're talking about people, I know people who've been working in businesses for 30 years and they're totally destroyed. They're bankrupt now. Finished. You think they're going to borrow money and try to re-establish business when there's no guarantee that the government won't just do it again? Well, I don't think so. There's no way anyone in business would do that. They'll say, screw that, I'm going to Jamaica or wherever, and I'm going to spend a while there, you know, and see how it happens. Because I'm not going to put money back into a business that these assholes might just shut down again on the whim of the WHO tomorrow. Okay? So no, there must never ever be a return to that, and we need a guarantee, a concrete guarantee from government that there will never be another lockdown. The next thing is that there is now, according to the WHO itself, you know, that font of false information, there's no evidence that having COVID confirms immunity, which means it's going to be very bloody hard to get a vaccine for it. And at the same time, they're now saying that, get this, 95% of all deaths from COVID have been in, and I quote, people with serious underlying health issues. And these include things like heart disease, lung disease, obesity, old age, a whole range of factors. 95% of the fatalities have been amongst these groups. Now, I know journalists being journalists, they fix on the extremely rare instances where young people have had this, younger people have had this and died suddenly. But they're just the unfortunate few. I'm sorry, but this lockdown was ludicrous. You don't quarantine people who've not done anything and who are not at risk. And that's what they actually did. They destroyed the economy in order to quarantine a whole bunch of people who had no risk in order to protect people who were going to die anyway. The word for that is insanity, absolute insanity. I'm going to leave COVID for a moment and I'm going to discuss something else, which is Brexit. Brexit negotiations have continued. Now, Britain has actually formally left the European Union, thankfully, and at long last. But there's still a period of 1 year, ending on the 31st of December, when Britain is tied to the EU, and during which time a formula for the continued trading arrangements between the EU and the UK has to be thrashed out. Now, the EU is making a lot of noises about how they're going to have to extend this. It's actually enshrined in British law now that unless a request for such an extension, the Britain could actually request an extension, the EU is legally not allowed to. Britain could, but they have to do it before June. And if they don't do it by June, then that's it. And there doesn't appear to be any chance of them doing it by June, thankfully. But one of the points I'd like to bring up is, well, two really, is the first is that the lead negotiator for the EU is a man called Michel Barnier. And I think a lot of people who don't know the French might be a little bit surprised by Barnier. You know, why is he quite as repugnant as he is? Why is he quite as unpleasant, as entitled as arrogant, perhaps, as he is? And the answer is quite simple. He's a product of a thing called les grandes écoles. And les grandes écoles are the big schools. They're the equivalent, the French equivalent of perhaps Oxbridge or Ivy League, but they're 100 times worse. The products of these establishments are taught in no uncertain terms that they are the best people in the world, that their ideas, because they're French ideas, are the only ideas that should be listened to, and that nobody else has any right whatsoever to gainsay or criticise them, and that they are always right, and that everyone else is supposed to just do as they're told. That's what the Grande École teach people. And of course, if you're a bit like that and you're already a little bit narcissistic and vain, which Barnier obviously is, you end up with this despicable, horrible human being who's just repulsive. But the fact is, the French establishment is absolutely full of them. Christine Lagarde, exactly the same. Macron, exactly the same. They're all the same. They all are taught to believe that they cannot be wrong, that they are always right, and that everything they say is how it should be, how it must be. And that's why Barnier is behaving the way he is, because he can't see any other person's point of view. It's not possible for him to do it. The Grande École make it absolutely impossible for their alumni to recognize, even to recognize, that there is another point of view. They don't accept it. It's not there. It's just, this is the way it is. It's just the way it is. Fortunately, by the way, most French people aren't like that. Most French people utterly detest them too. But when you come across them as someone who's not used to them, boy, are they offensive. So I have something to say to both the British government and everybody else. I come from a small, once prosperous town called Arbroath on the east coast of Scotland. And it was a major fishing port for a very long time. When I was a boy, this was in the 1960s, and the fleet was in, and the fleet was always in on Saturdays because, you know, you had to have a good drink at night and you had to go to church on Sunday morning and then out as soon as you could after that. Well, Saturday afternoon, the fleet was always in, and you could literally walk across the harbour, right, in any direction, across the decks of the boats. Literally. They were jammed in, if you'll pardon the pun, they were jammed in like sardines. And today, it's a pleasure marina. There is no fishing fleet. I think the last time I was there, there was one registered boat. One. So what happened to that? That was an industry that kept that town buoyant. My father was a Ford main agent, right? And it's not a very big town, but he was a Ford main agent. There was also a Ford authorised dealership. Now that was another garage with a showroom that got its stock from us and sold it, right? So you got two Ford dealers, authorised Ford dealer, a main agent and an authorised dealer in the same town. You also had a Roots dealer, a BMC dealer, Vauxhall dealer, I don't know who else. There were 5 or 6 different main agents in that town. And they were all selling a lot of cars. Why were they selling a lot of cars? Well, one of the main reasons was the fishing produced so much money. I will never forget when that fat, disgusting toad, Ted Heath, conned us into joining the EEC. And the men in the port said, that's our lives ruined. They've just taken away our business. They're going to let the French and the Belgians and the Dutch come in and take all the fish. And in 15 years, there will be no fishing industry in Arbroath. That's what the fishermen then said. And they were right. Like I say, now there is no fleet. There's just a big hole with water in it and a big wall around it. That's it. The entire livelihood of that town, my hometown, was ripped out so that Britain could be part of the EEC as it was then and the EU now. So I'm saying this to you. Don't you dare compromise one iota on fishing. I want to see you stick it to these people so hard it comes out of their mouths. I want to see these people whimper and whine and be told, you cannot enter British waters. And if you do enter waters, if you do, you'll have to deal with a Royal Navy gunboat. And that's what I want to see. And if they start saying, oh, trade war, well, they can have a trade war. They can have a shooting war if they want. They destroyed my town. I will never forgive them. Nobody from my town will ever forgive these bastards for what they did. They took our livelihoods. They destroyed our children. They took everything. Why? So that we could be part of Europe. No. Fishing is not on the table. It's non-negotiable. And anybody who's dealing with these EU twats had better realise that's what the people think. Non-negotiable. You are not going to sell out our fishing industry again, or what's left of it. It would be very nice to see some kind of industry re-establish itself. After so many years, 40 years, you don't know what could be done. The damage has been, it's been ruined. The town has been ruined by it. And that's not alone. You go up and down the coast of Scotland, you'll find the same thing. Towns ruined by the EU, destroyed by the EU. And all that money that they were making, where did it go? It went to London. And what about that? London was the one part of the Britain that wanted to stay in the EU. What about that, eh? That's remarkable. They got all of our money and they wanted to stay. I wonder why. Well, to them I say, fuck you. You go and be London, somewhere in the fucking Irish Sea. I won't care. You know? Go away, take yourself and pollute somebody else's country. Meantime, Mr. Barnier and anybody else who's listening, keep your bloody paws off the fishing because you ain't getting it. I would far rather see Britain simply work on WTO rules, which are actually not that unfavourable, by the way. It's the way that Australia deals with the EU. They don't have a deal. It's just WTO rules. I would far rather see that than see emotional stature that means so much thrown away again, as Heath did. Heath, a very, very nasty, evil man, a man obsessed with his European dream. And I do hope he's in a place burning slowly, because he was a pederast, by the way, where he can savor the destruction of that which he caused. But no, we can't allow the European Union to take our fishing away. No. They did it once, never again. Never again. See ya, bye.